I had said, even when, even though I despise Alex Jones, he was kind of the test balloon for cross-platform censorship and deplatforming. And I said at the time, when they deleted him from all the social media platforms, that despite the fact that I hate him or hate many of his ideas, I saw it as very dangerous, because I knew that it would not stop at him. It does not stop at the first one. It is then used largely against the left, against those speaking out against empire, against the corporate state. That's how it's been largely used. And yes, there are some, great examples of the far right, like Nazis being deleted from these platforms, but it never ends with just the initial one when you're getting into censorship. Now, I'm okay when it's someone who is literally promoting violence, go out there and harm people. But beyond that, it's very dangerous to start censoring ideas. And we're seeing that now. And I was exactly right that Alex Jones was just the beginning of it. And then a couple of years ago was a big purge of pages off of Facebook, including
there are a couple, I believe, there was like waves of just like hundreds of pages getting deleted at once.
Yeah, I mean, one of the big ones, I believe it was 800 pages at once, that included Free Thought Project, Police to Police, antiwar.com, et cetera. And many of those are just they shined a light on police brutality, let's say, or on the military-industrial complex. And not only were they deleted, but simultaneously, all of the editors were suspended from Twitter. So that is a cross-platform analysis and discussion that needed to happen. Like, these are big tech platforms that are normally enemies. They're adversaries. Facebook doesn't like Twitter. Facebook views Twitter as a kind of competitor. And yet they got together and said, these people and the people that work for these pages, we will delete them simultaneously. And it shows an incredible level and sophistication of censorship. And then, of course, there's been the stuff people talk about a lot less, which is shadow banning, which, I've been shadow banned on Facebook since 2016, 330,000 followers on my Facebook page. And, they show my post to about 9 people now. So you're lucky if you're one of the 9 out of the 330,000. So the shadow banning has been incredibly aggressive. And I think people need to pay attention to this and need to see that there's a reason these viewpoints, the viewpoints I espouse, are canceled, are shut down. It is because it's dangerous to the permanent war state. It's dangerous to the military-industrial complex. It's dangerous to the capitalist class that is exploiting and extracting what's left of America as workers and people struggle across the entire country.
And as far as the coordination, what I think that suggests, because again, there are specific pages or individuals who get deplatformed at the same exact time across different platforms. And, we've seen politicians, and I believe even, the White House has alluded to the fact that they've asked social media companies to clamp down on folks.
In terms of actions, Alex, that we have taken, or we're working to take, I should say, from the federal government, we've increased disinformation research and tracking within the Surgeon General's office. We're flagging problematic posts for Facebook that spread disinformation.
It seems as though there is collusion with the government, where the government is directing these social media giants to deplatform folks. So, I mean, doesn't this become a free speech issue, a First Amendment issue?
Well, yeah, and I feel like you can take the word "seem" out of those sentences, because Facebook has announced a couple of years ago, that they were bringing on the Atlantic Council to decide what is truth, to help them, quote unquote, fact check. Well, the Atlantic Council is, a U.S. government agency essentially, and so the link with the U.S. government is pretty obvious. In many ways, some of the initial funding for Google came from the CIA's venture capital arm. So, yeah, these links are very obvious. And even if they weren't straight up linked, you have just the fear, the threat of they're going to break them up, or they're going to harm their business, which has been done against Facebook we've seen it over the past 5 years. Basically, they've been attacked by the federal government, and I'm not going to defend Facebook. There's plenty about them I hate as well, but they've been attacked by the federal government and said, we're going to break you up if you don't censor all these pages.
Since the 2016 election, there have been several important elections around the world where we've had a better record. There's the French presidential election, there's the German election, there was the US Senate Alabama special election last year.
Explain what is better about the record.
So we've deployed new AI tools that do a better job of identifying fake accounts that may be trying to interfere in elections or spread misinformation. And between those 3 elections, we were able to proactively remove tens of thousands of accounts that before they could contribute significant harm.
Speak for a moment about automated bots that spread disinformation. What are you doing to punish those who exploit your platform in that regard?
We were able to determine that a number of Russian media organizations that were sanctioned by the Russian regulator were operated and controlled by this Internet Research Agency. So we took the step last week, there was a pretty big step for us, of taking down sanctioned news organizations in Russia as part of an operation to remove 270 fake accounts and pages, part of their broader network in Russia that was actually not targeting international interference as much as, sorry, let me correct that. It was primarily targeting spreading misinformation in Russia itself, as well as certain Russian-speaking neighboring countries.
How many accounts of this type have you taken down?
The ones that we've pegged back to the IRA, we can identify the 470 in the American elections and the 270 that we specifically went after in Russia last week. There are many others that our systems catch, which are more difficult to attribute specifically to Russian intelligence.
So they're going along with whatever the government wants in terms of what needs to be censored.
So don't you think this could result in a legal case, a Supreme Court case, if the government is directing social media companies to silence American citizens?
I mean, yes, I'd like to see a legal case, but as we've seen with our criminal justice system, or really our criminal space justice system, we've seen that they, at the end of the day, and especially in times of war, they will side with the imperial class, the imperial state. So I would be surprised if at the end of the day, the criminal justice system says, yeah, government, you need to bring back all of these voices that oppose your empire. But I certainly would support the effort. I just think it's unlikely.